Beneath the mask, the city skyline glittered in the distance, its neon lights casting faint reflections in the penthouse's glass walls. It was a room meant to inspire awe, with its minimalist furniture, marble floors, and an unobstructed view of the Manhattan horizon. But for all its grandeur, it felt like a cage to Valentina Moretti. She gripped the edge of the balcony railing, her manicured nails biting into the cold metal. The crisp night air brushed against her skin, but it did little to cool the fire burning inside her. Her life was perfect, at least, that's what everyone believed. She was the daughter of an empire, the heir to a legacy of wealth and power, with beauty that turned heads wherever she went. But none of that mattered tonight. Not when she felt like her carefully constructed world was crumbling. Running won't solve your problems, you know. The deep voice behind her was smooth as silk, yet laced with the kind of arrogance that made her blood boil. Valentina turned sharply, her long black dress swishing around her ankles as her gaze landed on the man lounging against the doorway. Atlas Kane. He was everything she hated. A smug, sharp-tongued enigma with a face carved by the gods and a penchant for chaos. His dark eyes held a glint of amusement, and the faint shadow of stubble on his jaw only added to the roguish charm he wore like armor. "And who says I'm running?" She shot back, her voice sharper than intended. Atlas tilted his head, the faintest smirk curving his lips. "Sweetheart, I know a runner when I see one. And you," his gaze raked over her, deliberate and slow. "Are practically sprinting." Valentina didn't know why he was here, in her space, her sanctuary. They moved in the same circles, high society's elites, but they weren't friends. At best, they were acquaintances. At worst, rivals. Atlas Kane was a self-made billionaire, a man whose name was whispered with both admiration and fear in the boardrooms of New York. He was unpredictable, his every move calculated yet chaotic, and his presence always felt like a storm brewing on the horizon. "Get out," she said, crossing her arms. "I don't remember inviting you in." "Your brother did." Atlas stepped closer, his casual strides betraying the predatory energy beneath his surface. "He's worried about you." "Everyone is." Valentina bristled. Of course her brother, Matteo, had sent Atlas. He was the one person she couldn't ignore, no matter how much she wanted to. "I'm fine," she said tightly. Atlas raised a brow. "Sure you are. That's why you've been avoiding your family for weeks and drinking your weight in overpriced whiskey." Her jaw tightened. "Why do you care?" "I don't," he said simply. "But Matteo does, and I owe him a favor. So here I am." He stopped a foot away from her, close enough that she could smell the faint scent of his cologne, something dark and woody that made her head spin. "But let's get one thing straight," he continued, his voice dropping an octave. "I'm not here to hold your hand or play therapist. Whatever mess you're in, you're going to deal with it. Because that's what people like us do. We don't break, Valentina. We bend. We adapt. And we win." His words shouldn't have affected her, but they did. They hit her like a punch to the gut, because deep down, she knew he was right. Valentina wasn't a damsel in distress. She was a Moretti, strong, ruthless, and untouchable. At least, that's who she used to be. But lately, everything felt wrong. Her father's health was failing, the weight of the family business was pressing down on her shoulders, and the whispers of betrayal in their inner circle were growing louder by the day. The cracks in her armor were showing, and she hated that. Atlas could see them. "You think you know me?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and something she couldn't name. "I know enough," he said, his gaze unwavering. "I know you're too proud to ask for help, even when you're drowning. I know you'd rather burn yourself out than admit you're scared. And I know," he took another step closer, his voice softening, "that you're stronger than this." Valentina's breath hitched. For a moment, the world fell away, the city, the penthouse, the weight of her responsibilities. All that remained was Atlas, his presence overwhelming, his words a lifeline she didn't know she needed. But she couldn't afford to trust him. Not when he was as dangerous as he was captivating. "You have no idea what I'm dealing with," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Then tell me," he said, his tone almost gentle. "Let me in, Valentina." It was a simple request, but it felt monumental. Letting him in meant exposing her vulnerability, her fears, her truths. It meant giving him a power over her that she wasn't sure she could handle. But something about Atlas made her want to try. In the weeks that followed, Valentina found herself drawn to him in ways she couldn't explain. He became her confidant, her sparring partner, her anchor in a storm she could no longer control. And slowly, she began to see the man behind the mask, the boy who had clawed his way out of poverty, who had built an empire from nothing, who understood her struggles because he had faced his own. Their connection was electric, undeniable, and utterly terrifying. But for every step forward, there was a step back. Valentina was still haunted by the weight of her family's legacy, by the betrayals that threatened to tear them apart. And Atlas had secrets of his own. The climax came on a night when the tension between them reached its breaking point. They were in her office, the city lights casting shadows across their faces. "You don't trust me," Atlas said, his voice low but firm. "I don't trust anyone," Valentina shot back. "That's your problem," he said, stepping closer. "You're so busy protecting yourself that you're pushing away the one person who actually gives a damn about you. I can't afford to let my guard down, she said, her voice cracking. Atlas reached out, his hand cupping her face. You can't afford not to. For a moment, they just stared at each other, the air between them charged with unspoken emotions. Then, as if drawn by some invisible force, their lips met in a kiss that was as fiery as it was tender. Their relationship wasn't perfect. It was messy, complicated, and full of challenges. But it was real. Together, they faced their demons, their secrets, their fears. And in the end, they realized that they were stronger together than they ever could be apart. Because beneath the masks they wore for the world, they had found something rare and precious, a love worth fighting for.